let's jump right in. Today, we're diving into something that is just absolutely fascinating. We actually got our hands on a 90-minute summer camp curriculum that was originally designed for kids, but honestly, it contains a psychological toolkit that most of us adults literally desperately need right now. So in this explainer, we're going to break down a brand new brain superpower derived straight from this virtual camp. And I can promise you, by the time we wrap up, you're going to look at your everyday environment in a completely different way. Now, I want to break the fourth wall right out of the gate and ask you directly. Has anyone heard the word mindfulness before? Well, of course you have. It's kind of everywhere nowadays. But I am willing to bet that the exact second you hear that word, your brain immediately conjures up a really specific, kind of cliché image. You probably picture someone sitting cross-legged on a mountaintop somewhere, eyes closed, just chanting silently in a perfectly quiet room, right? Well, you can go ahead and throw that image totally out the window. I actually just love how this curriculum completely redefines the concept for these campers. Listen to this quote straight from the source. Mindfulness isn't about sitting perfectly still. It's actually a superpower. It's the power of noticing what is happening right now. See, we're basically replacing that boring, passive idea of sitting like a statue with hyperactive presence. It's not about worrying what's for dinner later, and it's definitely not about agonizing over an email you sent yesterday. It is purely about being exactly where your feet are. Okay, so let's dive into this, because the camp starts with this brilliant, really visceral exercise to warm up those mental muscles. And I literally want you to physically do this with me right now, wherever you're listening. Just imagine we're playing a quick game of Simon Says. So sit up nice and tall. Ready? Breathe in really deeply right now, like you're smelling a giant pizza fresh out of the oven. Now hold that breath right down in your belly, hold it, just a little bit longer, and now blow it out with force, like you're trying to blow out 100 birthday candles all at once. That quick physical reset perfectly prepares us for the absolute core concept of today's explainer, which is reverse focus. Think of your attention like a giant spotlight. Now, for most of the day, that spotlight is pointed inward, right, at our own thoughts. Well, reverse focus means we take that spotlight, physically grab it, and intentionally shine it outside of ourselves. We basically transform into super detectives, and our one and only job is noticing the physical world around us. Now, what's really interesting about this is how clearly it contrasts our default state with our optimal state. See, internal focus, that's where anxiety lives. It's the whole realm of our racing thoughts, our hypothetical worries, our shifting feelings. But external focus, that is the ultimate grounding technique. It forces your brain out of that hypothetical future and pulls you directly into the present moment. Think about it. You literally cannot be a super detective investigating your physical room while simultaneously stressing out about tomorrow's schedule. Your brain simply has to choose one. And this next bit brilliantly illustrates why true observation actually takes some serious effort. Take a look at this illusion for our super detective test. How many hidden animals can you actually spot in there? At a first casual glance, your brain probably just says, oh, it's an elephant, and tries to move on. But if you apply active reverse focus, all these layers start to reveal themselves. Look, there's a horse inside the elephant, and a dog inside the horse. There's a cat, a mouse, and hey, look right at the elephant's trunk. There's a monkey. It just completely proves that true observation isn't passive at all. It requires really intentional, active focus. So the virtual camp puts this into immediate practice. And we're going to do the exact same thing. I want you to look away from your screen for just a second. Don't leave your chair, but try to complete these detective missions right now. Scan your environment and find 3 things that are blue. Just lock your eyes right onto them. You got them? Okay, mission 2. Find something near you that looks completely rough to the touch. By actively hunting for those colors and textures, you are successfully shining your mental spotlight outward. You're doing it. Once you've anchored yourself externally like that, the curriculum introduces this absolutely wonderful metaphor: be the pond. The whole idea here is that your environment, your thoughts, and your feelings are basically like fish swimming through water. They're constantly moving, coming and going. Some are super fast and brightly colored, others might be slow and kind of murky. But the catch is, you aren't the fish. You are the pond itself. You are the water. You're just peacefully watching things happen around you without getting swept away or trying to, catch every single fish that swims by. Now, obviously, being a super detective is seriously hard work for the brain. So halfway through this 90-minute camp, they do something absolutely brilliant. They implement a wiggle break. I mean, just look at the incredible energy of these kids dancing. They pump up the super fun 1-minute song to get everyone standing up, shaking their hands, shaking their feet, just spinning around. And why do they do this? Because giving the brain a quick, really energetic physical reset is absolutely vital before dropping down into deep, prolonged sensory focus.
Because right after that music stops, we enter the most challenging part of the entire camp, the power of silence. The curriculum introduces a zero words challenge here. For this entire segment, literally nobody is allowed to speak. Even the instructor drops their voice all the way down to a whisper. And let's be real, in our incredibly noisy, chaotic world, sudden, total silence is a massive shock to the system.
But as the curriculum so perfectly states, when we are silent, our ears wake up. To prove this to the kids, the camp runs a closed-eye sound safari game. Without any visual distractions at all and without the constant hum of conversation, the kids just sit there and listen to recorded nature and animal sounds and then try to identify them in the chat. It turns out, by just shutting down the mouth and the eyes, your ears suddenly become these incredibly sharp instruments. Let's move along and see how this builds straight into the ultimate senses challenge. We're actually going to do a lightning fast version of this right now. So stay in your quiet zone, silently, just in your head. Find 5 things you can see around you right now. Now, I want you to actually close your eyes. What are 4 things you can hear in this exact moment? Finally, keep your eyes closed and find 3 things you can physically feel. It could be the weight of the chair underneath you, the exact temperature of the air on your hands, even just the feeling of your feet resting flat on the floor. Okay, you can open your eyes back up and turn your normal internal voice back on. Let's just reflect on that experience for a second, just like they do at the end of the camp. I want you to ask yourself, what was the easiest part of that silence for you? And, maybe more importantly, what was the hardest part? Because for a whole lot of us, the hardest part of absolute silence is that when the outside world gets perfectly quiet, all our internal worries try to scream twice as loud just to fill up that void. And honestly, that is exactly why reverse focus is a superpower that absolutely requires practice way outside of a classroom setting. The camp doesn't just end there. They assign real-world homework, and I am enthusiastically assigning you this exact same mission today. I want you to use reverse focus at your very next meal. When you sit down to eat, don't just mindlessly consume your food while staring at your phone or the TV. Notice the vibrant colors on your plate. Actively notice that specific smell before you take your first bite. Pay real attention to the subtle sounds happening right around the table. By translating this superpower into your daily routines, you essentially stop sleepwalking through your own life. It's a real game changer. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative question straight from the camp's reflection session. Did you hear a sound in your house today that you've never ever noticed before? Keep that brain spotlight shining outward. Stay curious and just see what you discover in the world right in front of you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.